Yeah, I also will be speaking in English, not in Polish. Sorry, can I turn this around so I can have a look? All right, sorry. Well, I'm Dimi from Wikimedia in Brussels, and I have this somewhat, well, fuzzy task to bridge Rufus's vision and the very concrete copyright fixes that we want to achieve this time around, that my friends and colleagues Teresa and Diego are going to walk you through in a little bit. And I'm going to do so by inviting you all to come and play public policy ping pong with us. And by this I mean that I want to motivate each and every one of you to join the movement and to work with us on actually changing the current framework. And I will do so by, well, basically telling you what we've done in the past years and a few things where we've had success and where even individual activists actually managed to make a difference. Does that work now? Oh, okay. Well, if not, I can go without the slides, but. All right, I'll try like this. All right, so copyright reform is coming. It's quite bad. It's pretty bad, the proposal by the Commission, but we are not getting a copyright term, well, shorter copyright terms, but also what I would like to say is it's probably the first time in 250 or so years that we're getting a serious copyright reform proposal and nobody is talking about longer copyright terms. So we haven't quite changed the narrative yet, but we're on the brink of stemming the tides. We're really there yet, and that's why we need all of you to join in and to say, okay, enough is enough, and let's really change the way we even talk and think about culture and talk and think about copyright. At Wikimedia, just to give you a little bit of background, how we approach this whole thing. So we came together, we discussed, and similar to the open knowledge, we have a global vision. Our vision is that every single human being should have free access to all human knowledge. Now we try to achieve this vision by creating online projects that sort of gather all kinds of information on them under free licenses or under copyright exceptions for that matter. However, when we started doing public policy work, we also realized that unfortunately decision makers, so our politicians, are not quite ready for such a vision. They're not ready for you to go there and to ask them, hey, I want you to help me with world peace. Because nobody can deliver world peace, so that's why we decided, okay, it's great to have a vision and we'll stick by our narrative. You know, everybody should have free access to all human knowledge, but we want to be a bit more realistic. Maybe ask for also a few things that can actually be changed now and not only in 10 years' time. And we're hoping that we manage to pick the ones that actually help us change the narrative, help us stem the tides. So one of our more prominent examples that we picked is an exception to copyright called freedom of panorama. Why did we pick it? Because A, it would have direct impact on the content available for sharing on the internet. B, it seemed like a rather small fix. I mean, it's just one of like a more exotic exception in the copyright regime. And C, and this is very important, it was very easy to communicate it to everybody, even people who don't care about copyright, why this is absurd and, you know, we really need this exception because we should be free to take pictures of our streets and share them. So we believed, okay, this is a little fix, but, you know, maybe it can just help us change the game and change the narrative. So a second thing we discussed at Wikimedia is that we don't want to be represented by just a paid lobbyist in Brussels. So, well, this is not a surprise for Wikimedia. We are, after all, based on a volunteer movement that, you know, basically mostly uses volunteer work. But what was new to us, we also decided, no, there is no way we can only do this on volunteer work. We really need paid time, even if it's just a little bit paid time. We need somebody to coordinate and to actually, well, focus and magnify all this volunteer energy. So we set up kind of an open structure where any volunteer can at any given time join any given reform process. Then we started creating a network. We called this liquid lobbying, mainly because we were in a bar when we first thought of that. So then we started going to the parliament and to the commission and to the council. And the one thing I want you to take out of the session today, like the one thing I really want to hammer into your heads, is that European legislation is not made in a smoky back room. I mean, smoky back rooms exist, but mostly it's made in a constant back and forth of messages between Brussels and the national capitals. It's basically somebody in Brussels sending an email to somebody in Warsaw, this person changing a few lines there, sending it back, and then the person from Brussels sending something, I don't know, to Sofia or to Lisbon or to Prague, and then them changing something and sending it back. And this back and forth happens for as long as it takes till everybody agrees finally, or is exhausted to and agrees to a text. And this is confusing, but it also means that if we are better with our network and we're faster at exchanging the information between Warsaw and Brussels, between Sofia and Brussels, between Berlin and Brussels, this could be our competitive advantage. So we need to learn to very quickly shift gears between the national and the European level. One example of how this worked is the freedom of panorama exception that we managed to introduce in Belgium this year. This happened actually because 2.5 years ago, I think, the European Parliament decided to write an evaluation report on copyright. So Julia Reda, who was the rapporteur on this, proposed, okay, freedom of panorama, great thing, let's have like freedom of panorama everywhere. This was not particularly welcomed by mainly well, the larger groups in the parliament. So they tried to restrict it to non-commercial uses only everywhere, which for us would have been kind of a disaster. So thank God we had picked a topic that is easily communicatable, if there is such a word in English, to the public. So, you know, we started running a campaign on Twitter, but we actually managed to get into mainstream media in Germany, in the UK. This is actually a lovely one, The Times, where they say the Times sails with the pirates on this one. Even in Poland, we had some decent press. We managed to get, I think in the end, over 500,000 signatures for a petition. So in the end, yes, we managed to kick out the really bad text from the evaluation report, but we still felt like we completely failed. Why did we feel like we failed? Because we didn't get any good text inside this dossier. So, well, no, all this effort, all this work, all these nights, and in the end, we had nothing to show for it. But what happened is a few of our volunteers in Belgium, they were also members of Belgian national parties. So their MEPs supported this freedom of panorama exception in the European Parliament. And then they actually went back to their national parliament in Belgium and said, hey, guys, why don't we introduce freedom of panorama in Belgium? And, you know, since one of the parties picked it up, and luckily for us, this party was in the government coalition, the bill was introduced to the parliament, and I think it took like less than 6 months. We had a new copyright exception in Belgium. It went very quickly, and it went very quickly because we actually managed to shift gears between the European level and the national level. So what we're going to do with this now is, of course, build up Belgium to be one of the main supporters for freedom of panorama on the European Council level, because suddenly Belgium, you know, is one of the good countries. So this is what I mean. It's this ping pong, this constant back and forth. And this practically works everywhere. In Estonia, we have 2 volunteers, Eva and Raul. Eva and Raul are also working on the same issue. They have actually been talking to all kinds of organizations in Estonia about freedom of panorama. And I mean, it's just lovely. They managed to get the Estonian Academy of Arts to call copyright restrictions unreasonable, inhumane, and unnecessary in a public letter. Now, this was quite good. It actually also managed to score them a meeting with Vice President Ansip in the Commission. He told them, hey guys, I need good quotes, so, you know, I can use these things, and, you know, good arguments, so I can use them in our communications in Brussels. They gave them to him, which helped me in Brussels. But what he also did is, him making pressure on freedom of panorama in Brussels actually made the Estonian government pick up the dossier, and they are actually now working on implementing a full freedom of panorama in Estonia. So there again, you know, the Brussels work and the national work were just one in one. Same thing goes for the Czech Republic. There we made a coalition. We were actually there with somebody who's in the room today. And this coalition actually worked very well in the Czech Republic. One of the reasons was that they needed information of what's going on in Brussels, which we were able to provide. But on the other hand, they actually found new partners of us, new industry partners who would support our cause in Brussels, which would have not otherwise met hadn't Jan from the Czech Republic organized a coalition in Prague. So there again it was, the two going hand in hand, the Brussels effort helping the national effort, and volunteers in the national capitals helping the general EU policy reform. So we need to be a network. And about what's coming now, and the copyright reform really is coming, I'm giving the microphone to my colleagues Teresa and Diego. Thank you.